Welcome to Mr. Hutchings History, where the past comes alive. Let's dive into today's story.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really diving deep.
Into this whole debate about dictatorships.
Okay.
Like, how much power did these guys actually have?
Yeah.
You know, like Hitler and Castro are the big ones.
Right.
And, you know, you've sent in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Articles, podcasts, excerpts, all that.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a juicy one.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Okay.
This whole thing about intention versus structure,
Yeah.
it's kind of mind-blowing.
It's tempting, isn't it?
Yeah.
To think about these dictators as just like,
Yeah.
these all-powerful
Oh, yeah, they're calling all the shots, right?
pulling the strings, but
Yeah.
it's always more complicated than that.
But then how much is too much? You know what I mean?
Like,
It's like, where's the line?
Yeah. And that's where these kind of,
Yeah.
this intentionalism versus structuralism debate comes in.
Okay.
Like if we take Hitler's Nazi Germany, for instance.
Okay.
An intentionalist would look at that and say, Hitler was this mastermind. He had everything planned out.
Wow.
Every single detail, even the Holocaust, right?
Like he knew from the beginning.
Well, some historians like Lucy Dawidowicz,
Okay.
they argue that he was planning this way back in the 1920s.
Oh, wow.
Like it was this deep-seated anti-Semitism
Right.
that was driving him from the get-go.
Wow, that's scary.
And it wasn't just about this big grand plan.
Well,
You've got Eberhard Jekyll, another intentionalist.
Okay.
He's coming at it from this angle of deliberate chaos.
Deliberate chaos. What do you mean?
So Jekyll argued that Hitler actually used chaos
Okay.
to make his power stronger.
How does that work?
Well, he'd turn his officials against each other.
Oh, wow.
And so they're constantly trying to guess what he wants,
Okay.
anticipate his next move,
Right.
and fulfill his perceived wishes.
So it's almost like giving him more control.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's less about like micromanaging everything
Okay.
and more about creating an environment where his ideology just kind of seeps into every decision.
Interesting. So it's more like he set the stage
Exactly.
and then let everyone else play their part.
Right. And then you swing over to the structuralist view.
Okay.
Completely different picture.
Okay.
They'd say the Nazi state was a mess,
Okay.
full of these agencies all competing,
Huh. So they're all just trying
each with their own agenda.
get ahead.
Like the SS or the Gestapo.
Right.
They'd claim they're following Hitler's vision,
Right.
but in reality, they were often...
Working towards their own goals.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So not so much a puppeteer,
Okay.
more like a conductor,
Oh, I like that.
leading this orchestra of
Yeah.
self-interested musicians.
Yeah. Who all think they're playing the right tune.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where someone like Hans Mommsen comes in.
Okay.
He was a fascinating historian.
Yeah.
He argued that Nazi Germany was surprisingly polycratic.
Polycratic.
Yeah, meaning different groups were all
Oh, so vying for power.
vying for power.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it wasn't just Hitler at the top.
Exactly. He said that attributing everything directly to Hitler
Right.
ignores the reality on the ground.
Right. It's more nuanced than that.
Much more nuanced.
Okay, but then how does something like the Holocaust happen
Right.
if Hitler wasn't like
Yeah.
micromanaging it all?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't
Yeah.
it? And this is where you get this middle ground emerging.
Okay.
Historian Ian Kershaw.
Okay.
He argues that, yeah, Hitler might not have been micromanaging,
Okay.
but his ideology, his vision,
Right.
it was clear enough
Right.
that it guided those around him.
It's like this unspoken.
Exactly.
Like, sure.
And this is where you get that concept of working towards the Führer.
Okay. Working towards the Führer.
So officials are making decisions,
Right.
not necessarily from a direct order,
Okay.
but based on what they think Hitler wants,
Oh, wow.
what they think he would approve of,
Wow. So it's like they're almost.
trying to please him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to anticipate his desires.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, think about Aryanization,
Aryanization.
the systematic theft of Jewish property.
Right.
It wasn't always a direct order from Hitler,
Wow.
but officials were eager to prove their loyalty.
Right.
So they would go above and beyond.
Right, because they thought that's what he wanted.
Exactly.
Wow.
It was about exceeding his perceived expectations.
Right.
His ideology became like a self-fulfilling prophet.
That's kind of chilling when you think about it.
It is.
So it's not like one or the other.
Right.
It's not like he's all powerful or
It's both.
he's got no power. It's like this weird in between.
Exactly. You can have a dictator with a vision,
Right.
but also this chaotic system where
Yeah.
people are acting on their own interpretations of that vision.
So it's like this weird mix.
And that's Kershaw's point.
Okay.
You can't understand the Holocaust
Right.
without looking at both
Okay.
Hitler's intentions
Intentions and
the structural chaos
right.
that allowed it to happen.
That allowed it to become a reality.
Exactly.
Wow.
And while Hitler's Nazi Germany is obviously a stark example of this debate,
Yeah.
Fidel Castro's Cuba presents
Right.
a whole other set of complexities.
Yeah, like how similar are these guys?
Right.
You know, or is it just apples and oranges? So with Castro, we're looking at like...
Well, the Intentionalists would say he's this revolutionary leader, right? With this clear vision from the start.
Like he knew exactly what he wanted.
Exactly. And there's stuff to back that up.
Okay.
You look at his early writing.
Like that history will absolve me thing.
Exactly. History will absolve me.
Right.
Lays out his socialist ideals.
Right.
And then boom, he takes power.
Right.
What does he do?
He just like flips the whole script.
Radical policies.
Yeah, like what kind of stuff?
Land reforms.
Oh, fun.
Nationalizing industries.
Right.
Single-party state.
Wow. So he just like...
Big changes.
Restructured the whole country. And you can't forget...
Just like overnight.
The Bay of Pigs.
Right.
The Cuban Missile Crisis.
He's right in the thick of it.
He's a central figure.
Right.
In all these huge moments.
So it's easy to see why people see him as
exactly
larger than life.
Yeah, like almost mythical figure.
Right. But like we were saying with Hitler,
right,
it's never that simple.
Okay, so there's got to be more to it.
Exactly.
Like what about the stuff he couldn't control?
Right, like what were the forces acting on him?
Right.
And that's where the structuralists come in.
Okay.
They'd say, yeah, Castro was powerful.
Right.
But he wasn't operating in a vacuum.
Okay.
You can't ignore the influence of the Soviet Union.
Especially during the Cold War, right?
Exactly. That was a huge factor.
Yeah, like they were buddy-buddy for a while.
They were allies.
Right.
And Cuba needed their support.
Especially after that sugar harvest went bust.
Right.
Yeah.
1970.
Yeah.
The economy tanks.
And they're relying on the Soviets to bail them out.
Exactly. And that kind of reliance
right.
It comes with strings attached.
So suddenly Castro's grand vision has to fit in with what the Soviets want.
Exactly. It's not just about ideology anymore.
Right. It's real political.
It's about geopolitical realities.
It's like he's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
In a way, yeah.
Trying to balance his own goals with
the demands of the Soviet Union.
Wow. So even dictators have to answer to someone.
Right. It shows how even the most powerful leaders can be at the mercy of these larger forces.
It's like that old saying.
What's that?
It's a small world after all.
Right. Except in this case.
It's more like it's a Cold War world.
Exactly.
Nobody's entirely in control.
And just like with Nazi Germany.
Okay.
We can't forget about those internal power struggles.
Right. Within Cuba itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
You've got figures like Che Guevara.
Right.
Raul Castro.
Fidel's brother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They both had significant influence.
Okay, so it's not like Fidel was this one-man show running the whole thing.
It was more complex than that.
So he had to delegate.
He had to rely on others.
And that creates its own dynamic because now you've got different factions.
Competition.
People vying for power.
Exactly. It all factors into how things play out.
It's like that chessboard we were talking about earlier.
Right.
But now there's like 10 more players.
It's multi-level chess.
Right. And we're all just trying to keep up.
And it all goes back to that idea.
To what?
That oversimplifying these dictatorships.
Right.
It's just not accurate.
It's more nuanced than that.
Exactly.
So we've got these different perspectives on how to understand these regimes.
From individual intentions to
these larger
historical forces.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, it helps to look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Like the different schools of thought.
Okay, hit me with it.
So you've got the totalitarian school.
Okay.
They're all about control.
Control.
Total control.
So they'd say Hitler and Castro were basically the same.
In their eyes.
Okay.
Both striving for absolute power.
Over everything.
Every aspect of society.
Wow.
Politics, social life, culture, you name it.
So like those big rallies?
Exactly. That's part of that totalitarian playbook.
Wow. Okay. And then what's the other school of thought?
The revisionists.
The revisionism.
They're more interested in those external factors.
So they'd be more likely to say that Castro was...
They'd say he was reacting to the Cold War.
Right.
Especially pressure from the U.S.
So less about a master plan.
Right.
More about just trying to survive.
Exactly. Navigating a world dominated by superpowers.
So he's playing this high-stakes game.
That's a good way to put it.
Where the rules keep changing.
And the stakes are incredibly high.
Wow. Okay, so to understand Castro's decisions...
You have to look at the bigger picture.
The Cold War, the U.S. embargo, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. It all ties together.
Yeah, and it's like...
It's a lot to unpack.
We're trying to put together this puzzle.
Right. But all the pieces keep changing shape.
Yeah.
We've gone deep on Hitler and Castro.
two of the biggest ones.
Intentionalism versus structuralism, all these different schools of thought.
Trying to make sense of it all.
Right. And I guess what I'm realizing is
Yeah.
how easy it is to oversimplify things.
It is.
Like you look back at these dictators,
Right.
and it's tempting to just see them as,
monsters.
right, just evil dudes calling all the shots.
Yeah, with these simple narratives.
But it's so much more complicated than that.
Always.
It's like that saying,
Not yet.
history is written by the victors,
Right.
but maybe it's more like
It's more like,
history is interpreted
exactly.
through all these different lenses.
And each lens
And each one gives you a different perspective.
reveals something new.
Exactly.
Some new truth about what happened.
So we have to look at all these different angles
We have to.
if we really want to understand
Otherwise, we're missing
what really went down.
huge parts of the picture. And I think that's the key takeaway here.
What's that?
It's not just about
Right.
labeling Hitler or Castro as good or bad or
Right.
saying how much power they really had.
It's bigger than that.
It's about understanding.
It's about understanding how power works
Right.
in all its forms.
How it operates, how it influences people.
The interplay between the individual
Right.
and the system.
Because that stuff is still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we're still dealing with these same questions
Just look around.
about power and control and who gets to make the decisions.
It's all connected
It really is.
to our lives today.
Wow, this has been
It's been a journey.
a real eye-opener, I have to say.
It's all about asking the right questions.
Right, because studying history isn't just about memorizing dates and names.
It's about understanding the past
Right, and how it shapes the present.
and thinking critically about the world around us.
Exactly, and hopefully this deep dive has given everyone listening
That's right.
something to think about.
Something to chew on.
Maybe even spark some debate.
Because that's what it's all about.
Right, getting people talking and thinking critically.
And diving deep into these fascinating topics.
And on that note,
Yep.
thanks for joining us
Thanks for listening, everybody.
for another deep dive into history.
Until next time,
Keep exploring, keep questioning,
keep learning.
and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Mr. Hutchings History. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.